Hi guys, this is Bison, your host, and today I am back with an absolutely beautiful game played by none other than the legendary Bobby Fischer. This game was played in round 8 of the 1960 Leipzig Olympiad against Rene Letelier. And guys, the ending of this game is so brutal that it will literally blow your mind. Okay, so g6 by Fischer heading into the king's Indian defense, preparing to fianchetto the dark square bishop to g7. And after that, here Rene develops his knight on c3, bishop to g7, and you can see now he is preparing to castle his king to safety. And now Rene takes the center with e4, establishing a massive pawn presence and eyeing that e5 push to kick the knight. And finally Fischer castled, and after that e5. He attacks the knight, so that's why knight to e8. And you can see it is make a break with d6. And now f4 and finally d6. And although white creates a huge pawn center, Fischer has basically you can see Fischer has also completed his development. He castled successfully as well as opened the diagonal for his light square bishop. Okay, so bishop to e3, and finally Fischer attacks the center with c5. D takes c5, and obviously black cannot recapture with the pawn due to this undefended queen. So that's why knight to c6. And basically Fischer just focus on development, and he also defends his queen. And now he is ready to capture the pawn. And after that takes, e takes d6. And now it's better for white to just focus on development, and basically he can do this by developing his knight on f3 and then bishop to e2, and finally he can castle his king. But instead here Rene makes a mistake with knight to e4. And yes, he is attacking the weak pawn, but guys, the problem with that move is here white is neglecting his development, which is going to cost him in the later moves. I mean, now Fischer completely ignores his d6 pawn, and instead he just focuses on development. He brings his bishop to f5, attacking the knight on e4. And now it's better to capture this pawn by knight takes d6, but instead he retreats his knight back to g3, hitting the bishop. Okay, so Fischer just brings it back to e6, and after that here Rene develops his another knight on f3. And guys, now there is a variation for black which is like capturing on e5. And let's suppose if white decides to exchange the queens, after that takes, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes a7, bishop takes b2, attacking the rook, so rook to b1, and after that bishop to c3 check, king to f2. And you can see black pieces are just laser eyeing the white king, cutting off escape squares and completely dominating the board. Okay, so in the game, after knight to f3, here Fischer goes for queen to c7, putting some pressure over the e5 pawn. But white can now consider the move f5, trying to disrupt the black pawn structure. And let's suppose if this bishop goes back on d7, now comes e6, just marching the pawns. And if takes, f takes g6, h takes g6, and just take a look at that how shattered black king side pawns are. And you can see now white would have a great attacking position, but instead of queen to c7, okay, so let me go back. Yeah, so here Rene goes for basically after queen to c7, he goes for queen to b1. He misses the opportunity and basically also wants to go for the same idea which I mentioned earlier. But for that, he adds an extra piece. Yeah, so basically he thinks that he can attack. So basically he can solidify the attack by adding the queen into the defense. But as I said, this is a mistake because there is no need of no need for that, because I have already shown you the variation that white can also go for this directly. Okay, so after that basically Fischer captures on e5 and finally f5, attacking the bishop. And here the best move for black is to capture the pawn on f5 with bishop takes f5, because after knight takes f5, g takes f5, now queen takes f5. And yes, now this g file is opened, which can be problematic for black. But knight to d6. First of all, black can attack this queen, and if queen to h5, knight to b4, and you can see what's coming next. So to stop this, if rook to c1, which looks good, but what about knight takes a2, attacking this rook again, and if he goes to d1, now black can bring his knight back to b4 with the same threat of knight to c2, which is just too annoying. Okay, so in the game, after the move f5, okay, so let me go back. Here Fischer goes for e4. He basically sacrificed the e pawn so that he can open the diagonal for his light square bishop. And the main thing is this e5 square is open, and now black can bring his pieces into that. Now it's better for white to just capture on e4, which was expected, but instead he decides to capture the bishop on e6 with the f pawn. And basically the problem is after e takes f3, g takes f3, and now you can see white king is vulnerable because his defense are way too weak. Whereas look at the black king, it's safe hiding behind the pawns, and now he continues the attack with f5, threatening a nasty pawn fork on f4. So to block this, basically Rene just advances his f pawn, knight to f6. Okay, so finally Fischer brings his knight into the game, bishop to e2, rook at f goes to e8, and now as you can see he's targeting the pawn, but for white it's better to just castle, but instead he makes an inaccuracy with king to f2, and after that rook takes e6, and now you can see he's preparing to double his rook on the e file so that he can attack that vulnerable e3 bishop. Okay, so to stop this, rook to e1, and basically his idea is simple. If black doubles his rook, then he can just simply bring his bishop back with an extra defense. So basically after rook at a goes to e8, and you can see now the pressure on this bishop is immense, which I said you earlier. But guys, here the best move for white is to bring this bishop to d2 and then king to f1 so that he can ensure his king's safety. Because even let's suppose if black tries to increase the pressure with knight to d4, now queen to d3, defending the bishop, and if knight takes e2, rook takes e2, rook takes e2 check, knight takes e2, rook to d8 attacking the queen, but queen to f3, and although this is still winning for black, but white can hold this game for some time. Also, this may be equal if black makes any mistake or a blunder, because in chess, as we all know, anything is possible. But guys, in the actual game, after rook to e8, here Rene makes a huge mistake with bishop to f3. And guys, that's a mistake because in this position, Fischer played something which is so god level that it is still remembered today. I mean, in this position, he sacrificed the rook by rook takes e3. And the idea behind this move is after rook takes e3, rook takes e3, king takes e3, and as you can see now white king is opened and there is something which is set by Fischer. And can you guess the next move which is played by Fischer? Just pause the video because this is going to be even more crazy. In this position, Bobby Fischer shocked the chess world by sacrificing the queen with queen takes f4. And guys, what a move! I mean, in this position, after this move, Rene Letelier resigned because if he captured the queen with king takes f4, bishop to h6 checkmate. And guys, just look at how all black pieces and pawns are coordinated to create a perfect mating net, cutting off every single escape square for the white king. That's amazing. Okay, so let's suppose after queen takes f4, what if white decides to not capture the queen and instead to bring this king to f2? And guys, if this happens, then black is going to give a series of check, which starts with knight to g4 check. Okay, so king to g2, knight to e3 check, king to f2, knight to d4, and in the next move, as you can see, queen takes f3 is coming. So to defend this, queen to h1, but knight to g4 check, king to f1, and finally knight takes f3, and there is nothing which white can do to save this game. What an absolute masterpiece by Bobby Fischer. I mean, his tactical vision and ability to expose the enemy king in the center were just on the another level. If you like this video, hit that like button. I will see you in the next one. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.